Welcome, meeting makers. I'm your host, Lauren Green, meeting coach and facilitation trainer, here to help you unsuck your meetings one episode at a time. I've helped hundreds of professionals and organizations through leading inclusive, engaging, and productive meetings, and now I'm offering this podcast to help you do the same. Think of this podcast as an ongoing workshop, where each time you tune in, you'll get a bite-sized nugget of knowledge you can apply right away. If you lead meetings or might someday, you're in the right place. Let's make your meetings work. Hi there, meeting makers. If you've made it this far in season 1 and you are still stumped on how to plan an agenda, this episode is for you. Open space technology, made famous by Harrison Owen, is a meeting process where you spend the first several minutes of a meeting planning the agenda collaboratively with participants. Fun fact, there is no actual technology in open space technology. The term is used more like tool than your favorite new app. There's a technique to open space technology that ensures that anything people want to talk about is covered. If you want the original handbook for open space, we've included it in the description. I'm going to give you the abridged version. Now, let's say you have a meeting with 10 team members, and for the record, you can do open space with groups as large as 2,000. But let's say it's 10 people. Let's pretend for this meeting, you know you need to land on goals for the upcoming year, but you're not exactly sure what needs to be discussed when it comes to those goals. You kick off the meeting, and after a brief round of introductions, you invite anyone to bring forward a topic related to the overall goal of this session. You want to have a place to capture ideas. If you're in person, use sticky notes, and if you're online, use a shared document or online whiteboard tool. Collect ideas that are brought forward until there are none left. A trick is to use the question, "Anything else?" until no one answers. It's important to not invite discussion until all ideas have been added to the board. That would take you down a rabbit hole and away from the agenda building process, and you don't know what themes will emerge until all ideas have been shared. Now you have a list of topics, and there's a couple of things you can do at this point. For open space veterans, I'm about to deviate a bit from the script here. One option is to have people vote on their favorite topics, maybe 1 to 3 votes per person, and then tackle them in order from most popular to least popular. If time is limited, consider time boxing each topic so you have time to cover as many topics as possible. Another option is to use breakout groups. You can assign parts of the room or virtual breakout rooms to specific topics and allow people to, quote unquote, vote with their feet on the topic they want to work on most. Voting with their feet is a term from open space used to describe the process of seeing where the group interest is as people choose where they want to work. I usually get a lot of what if this or what if that happens when I'm explaining this to someone who's never seen it before. For example, what if a topic has nobody in it? What if a topic has only one person in it? And what if a topic has too many people? Open space makes several assumptions, also known as principles, one of which is whoever comes are the right people. In other words, if no one shows up for that topic, it says a lot about how much energy there is for that topic, and perhaps it's not worth following through on. If one person shows up, that person is free to work alone and then travel, again, voting with their feet, to another topic of interest. And if there are many people in a group, that's okay. I sometimes ask the group if they want to split into 2 smaller groups just to make sure everyone has time to speak. And speaking of timing, let's talk about it. The agenda creating process can take up to an hour, but plan for at least 30 minutes just to make sure everyone has a chance to put their ideas on the board. If your meeting is an hour, that means you could have one round of breakouts for about 20 minutes, leaving time to share next steps at the end. With more time, you can do multiple rounds of breakouts or 2 rounds of the same breakout topics, allowing people who didn't get to discuss something a chance to travel to that breakout topic on the second round. Hey, meeting makers. We know you may be driving, cooking, or working out and don't have time to take notes. we've got you covered. Our team at Dancing with Markers creates one-page visual summary notes of each podcast episode that you can download and review to quickly remember the key takeaways. Just head to the description and visit the link to have the notes sent right to your inbox. Don't have time to listen to a whole season? No worries. After each season, you'll be able to purchase our playbook with top tips and tools from each season. Find our playbooks on our website at makemeetings.org/playbook. So now you have the basic idea of open space. You create the agenda with a group, cover the topics one idea at a time or in breakouts. But what next? Remember in episode 4 when we talked about meeting flow, open, refine, close? If you haven't listened to that one, give it a listen now or grab the visual summary notes from the episode description. Open space is very much an opener, a chance to gather ideas. But unless you give specific directions for what to do with those ideas, it's rare that this can be used as a decision-making or closing process. Here's a way around that. So let's say one of the topics is improving our team communication. Remember, the goal of the meeting is to work on goals for the upcoming year. And so perhaps someone introduced the idea of improved team communication as one of the topics against that goal. So you, as a facilitator, instead of telling people simply to discuss this topic, give them a few focused questions to answer. Keep them short, simple, and no more than 3. No one wants a laundry list of complicated questions they can't remember to tackle in a very short amount of time. That's the quickest way to a sucky meeting. The questions could be, what's important about this topic? What ideas or solutions do you have? And what are your top 3 ideas or solutions? If you're really listening, you'll see that that last question is a closing question. This ensures that the topics will have a little bit more focus and perhaps a shot at some clear decisions if that's important. Now, we haven't talked about what happens at the beginning of a topic discussion. So it's very important that you spend a moment or two defining that topic to make sure everyone understands what it is. It's easy to do this by inviting someone to share a little bit of background about the topic. This could be the person that brought up the idea or really anyone who has that background knowledge. And before the conversation really begins, ask somebody to take notes. They can do them by hand or in a document, and bonus points if you use a shared document that everyone in the meeting can see. Note-taking is the most important part of open space. Without capturing the ideas and comments that were shared, it's very difficult to reap the benefits of this valuable collaborative process. Notes are the currency of conversation. In a future season, we will cover key tips on meeting note-taking. In the original open space model, there are a couple of additional principles that we didn't include in this episode. One is whenever it starts is the right time, and another is when it's over, it's over. Typically, in most meetings that we run, we actually do need to have a pretty good sense of when things start and end. And I personally like to have time as a constraint because it does force people to kind of work and be as creative as they can in the time allotted. So for that reason, I didn't include those 2 principles in this podcast, but I definitely recommend checking out the Open Space Technology book so you can see how it is meant to be accomplished. If you're using the model that I'm laying out, let's say that you use breakout groups and you gave perhaps 30 or 45 minutes, which is a good amount of time for breakout groups. And then afterwards, you wanted to give people a chance to brief out. If you do have the time, doing a brief out is really a nice touch, and maybe just have people brief out their top 3 takeaways rather than everything that they discussed. If you don't have time, it's completely okay to simply have people scan through the notes if they're in a shared document and ask if they have any questions. If we were in person, we would have people do a gallery walk where they might walk around and take a look at the posters, maybe even put a +1 with a marker on anything that they agreed with. So You don't necessarily have to do a brief out unless there is something that is clearly going to continue building on the conversations that were started in the breakout groups. There's another really great use case for open space, and that's when you plan an agenda and the participants do not want to do it. And that is one of the most anxiety provoking things that can happen to a facilitator. But have no fear, open space is your friend. And if you find that all of a sudden the group has a particular challenge that they keep bringing up, or perhaps they're resisting your agenda at every turn, you can simply pause. And I recommend taking a deep breath and ask the group if they would like to recreate the agenda using the open space model. Or you don't even have to say the open space model, but you can ask them if they would like to take a moment and introduce topics that they would like to discuss. Boom, open space, easy. So never worry if your agenda blows up because you have open space to fall back on. If you give this a try, let us know. Join the Meeting Makers community on Circle and share what you learned or ask for tips from members of our community. Let's make your meetings work. This podcast was written by Lauren Green and produced by Caitlin Murray. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a few seconds to rate and review so future meeting makers can find our community. Download a visual summary of this episode in the description and be sure to join the conversation in the Meeting Makers community on Circle. Want help with your next meeting? Reach out at makemeetings.work/contact and we'll set up time to chat.